welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Anastasiya Lavrina. A major dramatic effort in Islamabad has ended without a breakthrough, and within hours, the situation took a dramatic turn. Following the collapse of talks, President Donald Trump announced a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, ordering U.S. forces to intercept vessels and prevent what Washington sees as Iranian pressure on global shipping. This marks a clear shift from negotiation to direct action. At the center of the standoff is control over the strait itself. Tehran continues to assert its authority over this critical corridor, threatening access not as a given but as leverage. In response, Washington is now signaling it's prepared to enforce freedom of navigation by force, if necessary. The stakes couldn't be higher. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most vital energy routes, carrying a significant share of global oil. Any disruption here doesn't stay regional. It reverberates across markets, economies, and security calculations worldwide. So, what went wrong in Islamabad? Was there ever a real chance for agreement, or were both sides already preparing for confrontation? Today, we break down the failure of diplomacy, the battle over Hormuz, and whether this moment marks a turning point from fragile negotiations to a much more dangerous phase. Joining me now from Pakistan is Tahir Farooq, who is editor-in-chief of Daily Ittihad Media Group and Pakistan Economic Network. And from the Belgium, Brussels, we have Jason Isaacson, Chief Policy and Political Affairs Officer. Dear experts, warm welcome to Inside Politics. And Mr. Farooq, if you don't mind, let's start our today's conversation with you. So Islamabad hosted these high-stakes talks, yet they ended without a breakthrough. From your perspective, was Pakistan able to play an effective mediator, or were the gaps simply too wide to bridge?
Thank you very much, Anastasia. I was expecting you in Islamabad, as that was a very big activity and huge. International media was in Islamabad, and I was expecting. Anyways, you said that about breakthroughs. There were many breakthroughs, and I'm really happy that my country played a very important role and brought two parties together after 47 years. 1979 was the year when they met last, and after that they couldn't. Credit goes to Pakistan to set a stage for them and to bring them the most hostile parties. One was saying that they are going to make Iran hell, and the other was saying that they will open the door of hell for United States and President Trump. So credit goes to Pakistan, and there are many breakthroughs. If you read the statements of the leaders, the J.D. Vance and the Abbas Araghchi and the Speaker of the Parliament, I don't think that the talks are failed or something like this.
Yes, absolutely. The fact itself that the meeting took place, and specifically this time in Pakistan, it's a very good signal as such kind of meeting, direct talks happen first time since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. But after all of all, Mr. Isaacson, after hours of negotiations in Islamabad, both sides walked away. Was this a failure of diplomacy, or were both sides negotiating from positions that made agreement impossible from the strait?
I think all of those things are true. It was asking a lot to hope that in 21 hours of negotiations, two adversaries that have been hitting each other in various ways, physically and rhetorically for 47 years, would resolve everything. So this was an opening round. There was simply no intersection between the opening positions of the of the Iranians and the United States. Pakistan played a mediating role, but I'm not sure that there was very much to mediate in this first round. But I don't suspect that either wants to return to armed conflict. And so my suspicion is that over the next couple of weeks, we will see feelers that are put forward to try to find a way back into a negotiating round. But this was not a successful opening, but then one couldn't have expected it to be tremendously successful given where the two sides were.
Absolutely. There are some experts who still predict the happening of the next bilateral meetings in the upcoming days or the weeks. But as for now, Mr. Farouk, as we all know, the US president has now announced a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. How is this being viewed in Islamabad, as a necessary step to ensure security or as a dangerous escalation?
I would say that please see, I mean, how in how upward position President Trump is. I mean, his popularity has gone down, so he has to say something. He has to do something. But I don't think that these two parties will enter into a new war, because no one can afford war, even Iran and United States. So I don't think that they will enter into another big war, which was stopped, and both the parties are, I mean, willing to stop the war. And so far in Islamabad, this President Trump's this statement and this step is concerned, I would say that, I mean, what President Trump has to do, he's a desperate person right now. I mean, you see, NATO and other European countries have also left him, and so for his political career is at stake. So I think that I would say that. He cannot, I mean, attack again on Iran.
From the
This is
worst,
my take.
from the words to the action, Mr. Isaac, President Donald Trump announced, as I already said, a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a move that effectively shifts the situation from diplomacy to direct military pressure. So how feasible is this in practice? What scale of United States naval deployment would be required to enforce it? And indeed, can it be sustained without escalation?
So my understanding is that this blockade will prevent traffic to and from Iran. It won't necessarily interfere with traffic to and from other countries that are placed along the Arabian Gulf. But of course, there's the issue of whether it's safe for transit across the Strait of Hormuz, given the position of the Iranians, who are capable of using mines or drones or missiles to try to strike at one tanker or one ship. That would make it really quite discouraging for any transit at all. I don't know that the U.S. Navy is going to be in a position of trying to escort every ship that passes through that's not on its way to Iran. So it is a challenge, but at the same time, it is exerting economic pressure on Iran. And it is that kind of pressure that at least the United States is hoping will again drive the Iranians back to a serious negotiating position.
So from one side, we have Iranian blocking the Strait of Hormuz. From the other side, now Donald Trump is making another statement about United States blocking the strait. We do understand that two countries may follow different ideas and have different aims in this procedure, but still, Mr. Farouk, blocking one of the world's most critical maritime choke points carries enormous risks. At what point does enforcement itself of a blockade cross into open conflict between two sides? And probably we already see at that threshold in between of Iran and the United States.
It's very, I mean, interesting to see. To open a blockade, United States is doing another blockade. But on the other hand, China has very clearly said that they are not, they are standing with Iran, and they will open this blockade of United States. But you are absolutely right that if the situation triggers, the conflict can increase, and it can lead to some miseries. And so, I mean, so this is the situation that many countries have their own point of view, and China, which has direct pacts with Iran's trade and petrol and other things, they have very openly today said that they will support Iran and they will open this blockade if United States make this.
So we can expect the escalation of the situation and confrontation.
I mean, in this situation, if it continues like this, escalation can be seen. It can rise. This escalation.
The situation around the Strait of Hormuz is indeed escalating, but Mr. Isaacson, apart from this, Iran's position goes well beyond Strait of Hormuz, from the release of frozen assets and war reparations to recognition of enrichment rights and the United States military withdrawal from the region, from the Middle East. Which of these demands are absolute red lines for Washington, and which could realistically become part of a negotiated compromise in the future?
Oh, honestly, I think all of those are red lines. I don't think that there's any room for negotiation on Iran's continued right to enrich. Certainly, it should not be keeping the highly enriched uranium that it has stockpiled. That poses really the threat of nuclear weapons capability for the Iranians. The United States will never accept that. Reparations, I don't believe so, nor the withdrawal of the United States from its military presence across the Arabian Gulf. So none of those are negotiable for the United States. It has been a longstanding position, not only of this president, but of a succession of presidents going back decades, that Iran cannot possess nuclear weapons capability. And that has been the primary driver in the American campaign to stabilize the region and to allow Iran's neighbors to live comfortably without the shadow of a militarily capable Iran hovering over them, nuclear military capable Iran.
Meaning that two sides will continue to follow all of those points mentioned in their proposals far beyond the meeting in Islamabad, right?
I expect so. But again, is there some pathway forward that allows for, frankly, the Chinese, who are so severely affected by the cutoff of oil from Iran, to put pressure on the Iranians to get serious and to recognize that they are not going to have a pathway to military nuclear capability? Perhaps with the kind of pressure that the United States is exerting now, some of Iran's main customers, particularly the Chinese, will get that message sent loud and clear to what remains of the Iranian regime in Tehran.
Mr. Farouk, the same question to you, actually. Tehran has framed the Strait of Hormuz as a matter of sovereignty and leverage, and all other proposals which United States put on the table, Iran actually didn't agree with. From your perspective, what countermeasures should the United States realistically expect from Iran? Military, economic, or something asymmetric?
I think diplomatic channels would be more better. And during this summit, in the talks in Islamabad, some leaders from this delegation of Iranian, they visited the media center established in the convention center. They indirectly, they told that there are three red lines, which, I mean, the uranium and the Strait of Hormuz, which they cannot compromise on that. So, I mean, the diplomacy is the only way left. Economically and militarily, both the countries have seen the result.
Mr. Farouk, doesn't mean that Pakistan will continue to insist on diplomacy and express the willingness to hold even one more meeting if necessary.
Yes, I mean, Pakistan is focusing on it and Pakistan is pursuing it. Prime Minister of Pakistan is tomorrow or today, late night, leaving for Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And the second round is also expected. And both the parties have, I mean, indicated this, that this is not the end of the talks. I mean, there could be a second round. And the only way forward is discussions, table talks, and diplomacy.
And diplomacy. So, Mr. Isaacson, another very important point which was raised by many policymakers and experts. Iran insists Lebanon must be included in any broader ceasefire framework, while the United States and Israel reject that linkage. How much does this issue complicate diplomacy, and does it risk making a deal structurally impossible?
Well, it's always going to be difficult to come up with any kind of a deal with the Iranians, who have maintained terrorist proxies for decades and have, through Hezbollah in Lebanon, fired thousands of missiles and rockets and drones into Israel. Israel will no longer tolerate that kind of behavior on its northern border. It will continue to take action against Hezbollah until that force, that illegal force, is driven from power and its bases in Lebanon. So this is a complicated operation. It's not easy. and it certainly has implications for the negotiations with Iran. But it's really a separate issue because for too long, Israel has suffered from this barrage of missiles and rocket fire from its north. A force that has been sanctioned repeatedly in various international forums and that has posed enormous threats and caused enormous damage and casualties in Israel. Israel's not going to allow the return to stability with that with its neighbor with Lebanon still hosting Hezbollah. So this is a force. This is a campaign that Israel is determined to make conclusive. It's no longer going to tolerate a Hezbollah force on its border, whatever goes on in the negotiations with Iran.
Mr. Isaacson, indeed, that's very interesting. Today we have two front lines. The first is between United States and Iran. The second one is between Israel and Lebanon. But Iran is also willing to see the guarantees from Israel that it will not have any further attack against Iran. Then how exactly the country should have a negotiation here? Who should attend the meetings in the future? Is it again only about United States and Iran, or any third side should also get the invitation?
Look, I don't see Israel continuing its campaign against Iran if the United States ends the war with Iran. But at the same time, let's remember in 2024 and then in 2025, Iran fired missiles into Israel and in 2026. So it is not as though Israel doesn't have a card to play or a validity in its complaints against the Iranian power, the Iranian military capabilities, its long-range missiles, its medium-range missiles that have been fired repeatedly, and their drones against Israel. So I think that Israel is justified in pursuing some kind of effort to prevent Iran from having the capability to continue to fire missiles at Israel, not only from Hezbollah, Iran's proxy on Israel's northern border, but from Iran itself. Let's hope that the United States negotiations with Iran produces an Iran that no longer poses military threats to all of its neighbors, including Israel, including its Gulf neighbors who have been subject to thousands of missile and drone attacks over the last 6 weeks.
But it means that in case of de-escalation in between of Iran and United States, we cannot ignore the fact that the operation of Israel against Lebanon will continue.
I think that Israel can no longer tolerate attacks from Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's not an Israeli war against Lebanon. It's an Israeli war against a militia supplied by Iran, fueled by Iran, funded by Iran, armed by Iran, that has been firing missiles and drones and rockets into Israel. Israel can no longer tolerate that.
Well, then there is another very interesting question. A deal cannot happen without compromises, and now neither side appears willing to make them. Given the current trajectory, what realistic diplomatic off-ramps still exist, and is there political will in Washington to pursue them? Mr. Isaacson, the question to you.
I think there is a will to try to come up with some path forward that doesn't involve continued military action against Iran, but that really is going to depend on the Iranians recognizing that they can no longer have a military nuclear program, that they cannot enrich, knowing how they have behaved in the past, knowing that they have violated their agreements in the past. And as far as the continued support for proxies, including Hezbollah, that's also an issue that has to be seriously negotiated between the United States and Iran. I think it's possible to find a way forward. It's going to be difficult. Obviously, it's going to take even more pressure and patience. I don't know that the president is famous for his patience, but he's certainly interested in taking action and bringing this to a successful conclusion. And we very much hope that we're able to get there.
Absolutely. More guarantees is needed, not only for Iran, but also for Israel, that not any action will be expected from the side of Hezbollah in the future after the conclusion of all these operations in the Middle East. And Mr. Farouk, one more question to you. Given how far positions have hardened, what is the most realistic first step toward the escalation that both sides might still accept? Your personal opinion on that?
I think both the sides are accepting each other, but if you see the statement of J.D. Vance, the media talk, he did not say that everything is, closed and talks are failed. But I think, and same is the case with Iranians. They also said so. I feel that there still is a room to start negotiations and to avoid any escalation or avoid any war in future. So I am very much optimistic that the negotiations will start again and there will be, situation will improve. I hope so.
Well, let's hope that the escalation will happen in the upcoming days. But as for now, dear experts, unfortunately, we are running out of time. That's why I thank you both for joining Inside Politics today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all for this episode of Inside Politics. The situation remains fluid and the stakes are rising, and we will definitely continue to follow developments closely. Thank you for watching Inside Politics. I'm Anastasiya Lavrina, and I see you next time.